Bill Ward, $10. There are those who say that the idea of Mary's perpetual virginity comes from apocryphal texts. Well, it's true that the Proto-Evangelium of James and these kind of things are not, quote, in the canon. But from the Orthodox vantage point, that's not really a problem, because for us, there are traditions, and there are true traditions outside of the canonical texts. So there might, for example, be an oral tradition that's outside of the written biblical texts that was passed down, and maybe somebody recorded it in the Proto-Evangelium of James or some other thing, or it got recorded in a liturgical setting or a poem or whatever. And so, although we wouldn't necessarily claim the entire document or the entire non-canonical text as part of the tradition, those texts can have elements of tradition. For example, the Didache has true elements of tradition, but we don't accept everything in the Didache, right? It's not part of the canon of Scripture. But many church fathers thought that the Didache was canonical. Many church fathers thought 1st and 2nd Clement were part of the New Testament. So even though some of the documents that these kinds of texts end up being pseudepigrapha or pseudonymous or outside the canon, the Book of Enoch is cited in the Book of Jude, and so we would say, yeah, the Book of Enoch has true tradition. There's nothing anti-orthodox about that. It obviously is true. But it doesn't mean that I have to put Enoch in the canon of Scripture on the same level as the Gospels or Paul, right? So I think in the Orthodox Church, we recognize levels of this stuff. That's why in the liturgy, the Gospels are given a place above Paul and above the Old Testament. So there's levels to this. And usually the people that say this kind of stuff, it's just really based on kind of really low-tier Protestant objections. But great question, Bill Ward. They say the concept was created around the year 300. The problem with this argument from a Protestant is that this cuts both ways, because if you're going to require a written proof of a document or of a doctrine post AD 300, which is what the argument assumes, in other words, a Protestant saying, I'm not going to believe anything from this patristic period unless there's, quote, written evidence after the year 300 or something like this. Where's the Protestant canon prior to the year 300? It doesn't exist. So you see how that cuts both ways, and that what that shows is that the Protestant doesn't actually hold to that principle. It's a double standard that he's erected, to where he's saying, well, I have my Protestant canon, which doesn't have any real hardcore evidence for existing prior to the year 300, but I'm going to require that you give me the written textual evidence for perpetual virginity of Mary prior to 300. So you see, it's an arbitrary double standard. Their own position doesn't have that, which is built on Sola Scriptura for the most part. Storm the Cat, $10. I started reading the book of Revelation